The City Council, Sunnyside City Council meeting to order. I don't believe we have a pastor in the audience for invocation, so if you would, please stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I notice we're all here with the exception of Jim Restucci, who earlier today sent in a request for an excused absence. Without objection, we can make that so. Anybody with an objection? No? Hearing none, he will receive excused absence. So everybody else is here is supposed to be here. All right. I'm just checking off all the other folks. So, at this time, we can have unscheduled appearances by citizens. Citizens are advised they must limit their remarks to the council to 3 minutes, and that items presented may be referred by the council to staff for review and additional information for a future meeting. So, is there anyone here who would like to make a couple of remarks? If you'd step up to the mic, sir. And your name and city of residence, please.
I am Robert Udall. My city of residence is Cowiche, Washington. And I'm a candidate for sheriff, and I'm always up for a few remarks. So thank you for having me in front of the council tonight. I've been with the Acton County Sheriff's Office since 1990. I'm in my 29th year, and I have done literally every job in that agency. I'm currently the chief criminal deputy. I am the second in charge. And I didn't think I was ever going to run for sheriff, but when the sheriff came down, unfortunately, with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, someone was going to have to run from the agency, and it was going to be me. And I'm going to tell you why here in a little bit. But my experiences range everything. I was as a deputy years and years ago, and as a deputy after a few years, I went into the DARE program. And I think probably a lot of you remember the DARE program. I taught in, I think, like 15 different elementaries all across the valley, and that wasn't even like a real job. And I will tell you as I go through this, you'll probably know some enthusiasm on my part. I still don't think that I have a real job, but some of them have been even better than that. And the DARE was one of them because I go in the classrooms and talk to kids. And as a police officer, not everyone's always happy to see it. Most of the time when you walk in, either someone's been a victim or it's a suspect, and it's just not a good situation. But in the DARE program, I walk in those classrooms, those kids were happy to see me, and I was happy to see them. After leaving there, and I will say I don't know how many kids I kept off of drugs, but it let the kids see officers as people. So a very, very positive program. After that, I went into the ORV program, so off-road vehicle deputy. Again, not a real job. Drove a pickup with a motorcycle in the back, rode the trails and motorcycles and Jeep trails all over the mountain passes. It was just a great job, and I got to work so closely with a lot of the users up there. From there, back to patrol for a short stint, and then to detectives. And then the detectives was a different stint. I became a general crimes detective in the beginning, and I was tasked with all sorts of felony crimes, including homicides, and I found the work very, very, very rewarding. And then after a few years of that, I went into special crimes against women and kids. And that was a little bit different speed. And I tell people those type of crimes are like throwing a rock or a pebble into a pond. It just, the ripples spread out, and it affects so many different people. So I don't think I ever made anything good, but I know I helped people. And it was very, very rewarding. Although my wife, who was seated back here, Tracy, she told me that when I was doing those type of crimes, I stopped talking about them, and my days were longer. I certainly understand that. Patrol sergeant. Again, not even like a real job. If you're going to work patrol in law enforcement, being a patrol sergeant is the place to be. You're kind of like the king of your realm. But that's when I started learning about managing and working with other police officers, because police officers are all a bunch of type A personalities, and they like to do what they like to do. So that's where I got my first taste of it. But I went back to detectives, a detective sergeant, and then I moved into, I was appointed by Sheriff Irwin as the chief civil deputy 6 years ago. And then I started getting into things I'd never seen before in the police department. I managed our records division and our dispatch. Again, I was overseeing detectives, but that's the unseen part that most police officers never get to manage. And every police department or sheriff's office is like a three-legged stool. Everyone sees the people with the guns, but you don't see the records people, you don't see the dispatch. And without those people, the police department fails quick, within sometimes minutes, because we got to have dispatches to tell us where to go. And then a couple of years ago, I was appointed as chief criminal deputy, and I'm in charge of everything. And with the sheriff being out literally for the last 18 months, we see him maybe one day a week. I have been in charge of the sheriff's office, acting a lot like an undersheriff capacity for that whole period of time. And very rewarding, and I will tell you that about the changes that have been happening there. The sheriff's office right now is easily in the best position I have seen it since I've been there. We don't have as many people, but the positive attitude and the work they're doing is truly amazing. Now, they're people, and sometimes I get a few complaints, but over the last 3 or 4 months that I've been campaigning for this position, I have had talked to so many people, and the positive comments about the sheriff's office outweigh the negative 10 or 15 to 1. It's been just remarkable. Okay. And so why am I running? Because we've been going in the right direction. We have had so much change in the last 3 years. Sheriff Winter allowed us to have a culture of change, and it has been amazing. From efficiency, software, the way we do our patrol cars now, staffing, everything has just been a flux of change. It's like it doesn't matter what we do, we're willing to look at it and make those changes. Community is huge for me. I have lived in this county my entire life. My wife and I have gone on motorcycle rides all over the Pacific Northwest and clear back into almost to Texas. We come home to this valley, and this is a great place to live. And as sheriff, you have that podium to make the best difference you can. And that is the final reason. As the sheriff, I can't go any higher. I cannot have any more impact in my profession than as sheriff. And I'm excited for that opportunity. There's a lot of things we're going to do different. We are going to communication. I don't know if cops always do a good job of communication. We don't listen really good to the people that we serve sometimes, and we don't tell people what we do. So we're going to work really, really hard on that. Our efficiencies. We're not a big department. We are a very small sheriff's office. Matter of fact, in the state, we are one of the smallest for deputies per 1,000. Very, very small. So we've got to get better at how we respond, how we programs, efficiencies that make us better out there in the field. And that leads to the last thing that we're going to become very good at, training. Training is everything for limiting liability, and it makes us better. My goal for the sheriff's office is to become the premier law enforcement agency in this county, bar none. And we don't have to be big to do that, and we don't have to have great big budgets. We just have to be professional.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
May I approach the bench? This is going to be, I have some flyers.
Well, you can't do that right now, but you could give those to Elizabeth right there for us.
Perfect.
It's, it's the wall there.
It is.
It's not wall. But if you would just go ahead and give those to Elizabeth, and that'd be great.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to meet everybody tonight and to give a few words. Have a good meeting.
Thank you very much for
being
here. All right. Is there any other folks who want to have anything to say to council before we get started here? Okay, seeing that, okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I was supposed to say that. Does anyone have any questions about the consent agenda that they need to ask tonight?
Yes, item 2B3, H6.
B3, H6, supplemental water transfers.
No, this is a printing error. There's about 18 checks. Looks like they had a printing error. I just want to confirm that they all got reprinted, or that some got canceled or striked because of some reason.
Is it under 2? Did you say 2?
2B3,
2B3.
H6. Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I believe Ms. Oliver can answer that question.
Sure.
Mayor and Council, Our program actually froze during printing, and it started numbering checks in the wrong order, and we caught it as we had these checks. So we called our software company and asked them, what do we do? And they said, well, you could go in and renumber everything and then try to reprint according to the number. And I basically made the decision that it'd be cleaner and easier to understand if we voided all of the checks that were assigned the wrong number and then reissued them with a number that corresponded in the system. So those checks were actually voided in our system and then reissued with a new number.
New number, okay. So but they all got reissued.
There's nothing that was missed. And really what happened was we have this anomaly called a locked row, and if somebody is in the same exact record as the person that's printing, it'll sit and say locked row, and it dings and dings and dings. And when you get that, basically everybody has to get out and get back in because it's trying to look at the same data on the same table, and they were fighting with each other. And so basically that's what happened. And so now we have implemented everyone out protocol. So everyone out of accounts payable while we run checks, and they only take about 10 minutes. So it's something that just is a rare occurrence, and it happened on that day.
I'm glad to see this on here. That way it kind of keeps us looking at these records, making sure that they're obviously accurate and nothing is missing. So thank you for doing it that way. Yeah,
we just thought that was the best way to convey it and have it be transparent.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the pardon?
Just a comment, Madam Mayor. Mr. Hanks has stepped out for a moment, so you go on.
Oh.
I'm not sure what protocol is for that one. I just wanted to make sure you...
For the consent agenda? I don't know. So
it's just making a note of the record.
Just make a note that he stepped out?
No, he's back. So
and
I just was wondering if we wanted to hold until he was here.
Well, you talked long enough. He's back. Okay, good.
That's my gift. I can't talk.
It's all good. All right, so I'll just ask one more time if there are any other questions regarding the consent agenda. If not, what is the council's pleasure?
Approved.
Second.
Okay, those in favor, or any debate? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to the active agenda, we have on the Washington Teamsters Trust Fund. Consider approving a resolution for payment of interest and attorney fees to the Washington Teamsters Welfare Trust Fund. Mr. City Manager. Excuse me.
Madam Mayor, if I may turn the mic over to Ms. Alba. She has the information on this.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you all know, in January, I took over oversight of the Human Resource Office, and part of that was taking a comprehensive look at all of the benefits and payables that were coming out of that office. And I immediately noticed that our insurance was not being paid correctly. So, being an old hand at some of the HR functions from other places that I've worked, I basically took it upon myself to try to figure out what was going on with it. And it took me a while. And in that process, my payment for January was late. And so, not having read this lovely trust operating guidelines, I wasn't aware that if we did not pay on time, we would be basically breaking the trust. So I paid 10 days late, past January 30th, basically. And received, as you can see, in March, a very lovely letter on March 8th asking for $32,000 in penalties, interest, and liquidated damages. I was quite shocked. Went into Mr. Day and said, well, I need to own up to this, and what should I do? And Mr. Day said, well, Elizabeth, I don't know. Maybe you better call him and find out, because we really hadn't been in the situation that we were aware of. So I actually spoke with the attorney and found out some more information about our trust agreement. I actually pulled up the trust agreement and read through it for myself. And then I basically sent a letter to them asking if they could waive the interest, liquidated damage, and attorney's fees. And I outlined for them how I would make sure that this did not happen again. So the things that I've implemented since then is we are now online reconciling all Teamsters insurance. So what that means is we're no longer waiting for a paper copy. We're no longer waiting for paper copies that may have changes that we're unaware of. Now everything is live data. I can go in and add someone. I can go in and remove someone right as I'm doing the billing. I also implemented no longer having a paper check. Part of the issue we were having is one of the first things that happened is I had a paper check printed in January. I asked the payroll clerk, hold that because I'm trying to set up ACH. She held that check, and I didn't get the ACH set up on time, and then all of a sudden she said, oh, by the way, I have this check sitting here for, and I hate to say this, it was about $160,000, and I gasped and said, let's figure this out right away. So on March 14th, I wrote a letter to them, and I CC'd Don so he would be aware that I was owning up to this mistake, and it was my mistake. And I also let Teamsters know what I was doing to rectify the situation. So on June 25th, we received a letter asking for the interest and the attorney fees only, which is considerably less than $32,000. It's $530.71. While I don't really like the fact that the city has to pay anything, I think that it was well worth the time that I took to write to them. And I also think it's well worth me reading this compact. I don't know if anyone had ever read it, or if we had it been maybe when it was first brought to the city. And then along with that, I've set up protocol and procedures for this. And I'm training the payroll clerk as we speak. She's in her second month of doing this. And then after she's fully trained, then I will be a reviewer. She will be an executor unless she's out or I'm out. Then I will have a third person that's trained. So I think that this whole process was, twofold. It was bad that it happened, but it was good that it was something that I was able to see that there was a problem. And just for your information, this isn't the first time the city has had this. I was actually told when I talked to them on the phone that we had asked for a waiver back in 2011 and were granted it. So I think that it's something that may not have ever been brought forward to council, or maybe it have. I'm not sure. But I do know that I wasn't going to hide the fact that there was a mistake made.
So what we're actually going to end up paying then is the $530.71?
That's correct.
And they've waived everything else?
Everything else is waived, yes.
I think we can live with that. Especially with the new protocols and oversight that you've put in place. I think that's well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Making it live too was upside, so I appreciate that very much.
The letter was pretty comprehensive. The one that you sent over was pretty comprehensive. What was going on? What are you going to do to fix it so it doesn't happen again? So that I think that weighed heavily on their decision to grant the waiver. Sounds like so. Yeah. Mostly played a role in it.
And I'll tell you, I purposely wrote my letter that way so that if I did have to come before you, you would understand the process I took. And also sending it to John and having him have a copy so that if for some reason I wasn't here to answer for this, he would have what had happened. I think that's just very clear, the steps that have been taken and where we are. And I think always we should, say, hey, yes, I did make a mistake, and let me show you what I did, how I did, and how I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I just want to commend you on your efforts for transparency there, because so often, things get changed and you don't know why or how. So I appreciate your transparency and your efforts to square this particular issue. So, the council, any other comments from Ms. Alba?
I'd just like to say one thing. So as you've come into the job as financial director, and every time you take a step forward, it seems like you're wading into something that's has a tendency to blindside you, and you end up catching it, and you've continue to do that, and I continue to be very pleased with what you're doing. So carry on. Again, I appreciate, like the others have said, your honesty and transparency on this one. And yeah, your effort. I mean, you've saved us quite a bit of money. It hasn't changed to pay anything at all, but you've done well here.
So what is the,
Move to approve.
Second.
okay. See, I'm sorry, I got the move, and there was a second. Craig. Okay. Any debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And let's hope we don't find any more snakes in the, any further, going further down the road. It's kind of startling when you get a big old bill like that. It's like, whoa, what was that for? Thank you. All right. Good night, sir. Okay, moving on to our agenda, our next item is the Munson property lease, and I believe that turned it over to City Manager.
Madam Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, as you're aware, we have been negotiating a lease for a portion of the Monson property for a solar array. We have a gentleman here, Mr. Blake, I can't remember how to pronounce your last name, Bjornson, my apologies. He is here representing Solar One. No, that's not it. One Energy. One Energy. I knew there was one in there. We also have one of our attorneys here, Keith Warner, and he's here to answer any questions. Mr. Blake has produced the document. Keith took some work on it. They've come up with something there, so we're here to discuss it and see if you want to enter into an option phase, which would give them an option on the land to lease it. Minimal amount of money. They'll have, I believe it's 5 years to complete their assessment. We don't think it's going to take that long, but that's what it's written for, to ensure that they have plenty of time. After that, it would be a lease, and then for, I believe it's $900 an acre for 26 years, and that is renewable automatically to 40 years, if I remember right, something around there. 36. So it's 10, okay, 2 5-year extensions. One 10-year, all right. I get it. Okay. Still good. 10. So that's what you're dealing with tonight. So, and again, I've already discussed with you the amounts and what that's worth and stuff. So that's what you're here to decide tonight, is whether you want to lock down that property. And if these conditions are acceptable, and I do want Keith to weigh in and have any comments that he might have or questions.
Oh, great. Madam Mayor and Council, thanks for having me here. And I did go back and forth with Don and Blake on this lease, and I had a few thoughts. I'm not sure if you have had a chance to review the final version of the lease option, which we just really got back tonight a few hours ago. But I think this is a great opportunity for the city. As far as the lease goes, I have a few remaining issues. We did go through the lease, and we made a few different changes, most of which One Energy agreed to. But there are a few remaining issues that I would like to point out, which may need some resolved and a little bit more research before we finalize. And I'll go over those with you guys, and then if there's any questions, I welcome those as well. The first one is, as Elizabeth and I chatted before, in Section D of your Exhibit B, your solar lease term sheet, this is a term sheet that will essentially, the lease will encompass these terms. It's almost like a look forward. So it's an exhibit to the option. If the company chooses to enter into the lease, these terms must be included in the lease. One of those terms is Section D, taxes. If you look a few lines down, it speaks of real property taxes. Elizabeth pointed out something to me before council, and it's a good point. The city is responsible for a 12.8 and some change percent leasehold excise tax. Essentially, if the city chooses to lease to a private party, the state will charge a 12.8 and some change percentage tax to the city. The way the lease is written now, it could be construed to withhold that leasehold tax from the company, and it could be construed that the company is not responsible for that leasehold tax. So that might be something that we would want to speak a little bit more on with One Energy to make sure that our taxes that will be charged are passed on through, so the city's not incurring that. That's about $9,200 a year, and potentially a 36-year lease that escalates up to $350,000, some change in there. So that's something we would want to speak about. I think the way it's written, it speaks to real property taxes. I think we could be good, but I'd like to speak with Blake and make sure that's real crystal clear. Another issue I have with it that's at this time still is Section E, right below. We're still on Exhibit B, and we're discussing the 36 inches is a depth of footings of these solar panels. We want to make sure that when this company ends the lease, that they remove everything under the ground, not just above the ground. And so I'd like to speak with One Energy and did a little bit of research on solar footings. 36 inches is pretty common, but they can go deeper. So I haven't had a chance to speak with Blake on that yet. And then I'd like the council just to consider, I know that Darren Blake did do some negotiation on the price, and that went up, so I think that's great. I think from 800 to 900 an acre. But I would like the council to realize that this is a 26-year lease with a 10-year extension, and the lease as we have it now does remain the same for even for the extension. That would be a policy matter of the council if you would want to leave that amount the same. If you do, keep in mind that's the same amount of money for 36 years. A lot of leases will increase at the 10-year renewal or any renewal. So that's something else that we might want to speak a little bit more about. Other than that, I think the rest of the issues we had with the lease have been resolved, or the lease option, I should say. So at that, I'll let you guys ask any questions if there are any.
So when I'm reading on Section D, it says company be responsible for paying such increase. Is that we're talking about one solar paying the increase, or we're talking about the city paying the increase in taxes for the property of the land?
Yeah, so essentially, if the city is not taxed on the land, but if the city chooses to act as a private landowner and rent it out to another private company, such as One Energy, the state charges that tax that would normally be charged, and it's 12.8%. So the state or the city will incur that percentage on the entire lease amount, $900 per acre per year. The city will incur a bill from the state essentially of 12.8 and some change percentage, so which is not like I said, 9,244 a year. So the city will incur that. The way it's written in the lease, you could construe that to say, okay, that gets passed on to the company if there is an increase. We know for a fact that there will be an increase in our property taxes because right now they'd be zero, and they'd go up from 0 to 12.8%. So that's something that I would like to work a little bit more with the company on that covering, make sure that they're clear they're going to have to cover that tax before we enter into the lease option.
Madam Mayor and council members, thank you for having me. Blake Bjornson from One Energy. Very happy to be here. Been working with Don for several months now on discussing this property, and we're very excited about the potential for getting a project here in Sunnyside. And want to thank Keith too for working with us on this lease. On the taxes, I have no doubt that that'll be no problem to make it very explicit in there that we would be willing to cover that additional excise tax. I was doing a little research after we discussed it real briefly, and I don't think that'll be any problem to add that in. And I think maybe I'll just address the other issues too, if that makes sense. On the removal, so typically, and I think that this would be the case here because of the soil type, we use driven piles, which can be as deep as 6 feet, but they go in pretty much like toothpicks and they come out very similarly. So at the end of the term, each one of those piles that's supporting the steel racking gets pulled out, And the only way something deeper than 36 feet is going to stay in there is if some of that steel gets, if somehow it corrodes and somehow gets left behind in the dirt. And the reason we do 36 inches, and the reason, as Keith pointed out, that's sort of industry standard, is that that's typically kind of the plowing depth that we have heard that the industry understands is required to be able to take that land back. Typically, a lot of these projects are on agricultural land. So that's the reason for the 36 inches. Going below that can be very, very expensive, and just from our experience and our understanding, it's just sort of unnecessary. So that's sort of on that one. And then on the increase, certainly can discuss that. That's something that I had to go back and discuss with managers and have to have sort of back and forth internally. But happy to have that conversation. So, and also,
So you said that last bit was about what?
About a potential increase at the extension period in the rent. And so with that, I would be absolutely open to any questions you guys have, or I can also discuss more of the project, potential projects. So just let me know.
One of the things I read in here was that it was the solar panels or the solar concentration. And I'm not an expert, so I guess from your perspective, being an expert in the field, that from the news, some places you see that birds flying across this concentration array and it just blow up in smoke, basically. Is that something you guys plan to do here, or is that
no?
Just panels?
So we do solar photovoltaic, and that's the difference between concentrated solar and solar photovoltaic. So we One Energy is a utility scale photovoltaic developer. We specialize 100% in photovoltaic solar arrays, and those are the typical panels that you see on houses. It's just many thousands of those in a field, and instead of supplying power for an on-site need, it goes into the grid and serves, in this case, Pacific Core's consumers and customers.
So you don't see yourself in the future installing those concentrations?
No, those are like very large projects that you see out in the desert, the Mojave Desert, and kind of things like that.
I did see it in here as an option. That's why I was asking that was a possibility.
That's interesting. We do photovoltaic solar.
I'm thinking, years from now, maybe that might change. So I'm kind of concerned about it. So if that's something that there's not a need for it now, at that point, might be something you could look at and maybe strike out of there.
Certainly. Yeah, we can certainly look at that. I do want to say one, I said that we focus specifically on photovoltaic. We are, as battery storage is becoming more of a industry standard, something that is coming into the energy sector. It is something that we're thinking about deploying and thinking about integrating into our projects. So that is included in there as well. That may be something that gets included in a project, is some battery storage that the panels, rather than giving all that power at the moment it's produced into the grid, can store it on site, and then later on in the day when demand is higher, when everybody goes home, turns on their air conditioners, and the sun's going down, you can turn those batteries, and the flow of electricity can go out even when the sun's not up.
So my question is a little bit different. It's more about the physical property itself. As I was reading through this, I don't see any provision for maintaining the weeds, keeping that down. We've seen an awful lot of property owners over the years getting like 2 acres of country and turns it into a weed patch. And, we would drive by that every day. So what is there something in the contract, or is it something that you guys have a plan for keeping weeds under control and making sure it doesn't turn into an eyesore?
Yeah. It's not in the contract specifically, in the lease agreement. It is something that we almost every single time when we're dealing with permitting need to deal with. So in this case, it would be permitted through the city, and we would absolutely be willing to write up a weed plan, work with the public works director to come up with a weed plan to keep weeds down, think about what kind of weed-free seed we want to put down once construction's over. It's something that we're constantly thinking about. So it's not in the contract, but it is something that we will address. We usually do a low-growing, weed-free seed that gets planted after construction.
I can address that as well. So this is the lease option, and it's going to be some of the terms that will be in the lease, but the way we've made sure to write it is so that this will not be comprehensive. So we would, in our office, would definitely make sure we would want to address not just weed control, fire control. There's a number of different things we want to make sure in the actual lease, if that is entered into, if they take the option.
one last comment for this our attorney maybe. Obviously, $1 million 26 years ago would have bought you a lot more money than it does today. So I guess if you take that into consideration, how much money is worth today compared to 26 years from now, maybe do some math in there and find out something that it's reasonable for obviously One Energy and reasonable for the city as well.
Yeah, so as you know, or if you don't know, I'll let you know that lawyers are not very good at math. But I'm sure Elizabeth can help us out with that. I think an annuity of some type would be great to figure out what that value is worth now versus what it would be 26 and 36 years from now. And it sounds like the 26 years initial term is required for the financing. I don't know too much about that, but I think that some type of an increase at the extension would definitely be. I think that council would be wise to consider that. So I definitely work with Elizabeth on that and see what the value is and come back.
And that's something that your company would be agreeable to, some sort of an increase in the rent at the first sign up, whenever it would come up.
At the extension.
Yeah,
Yes.
extension.
Yes, I think so. That's not a decision that I can make tonight, but it's something that I can bring back and discuss with the team.
And again, we were talking about a acreage of, is that
What is 80 acres, I think?
70, I believe.
70?
It's approximately 70.
Well, and let me kind of clarify on that. So it's in up to 70 acres. So one of the first items that's going to happen during that option period, which we also call it due diligence periods when we're running all of our due diligence. One of the first items we'll do is begin discussions with Pacific Power on what the interconnection infrastructure will require. So this project will connect to the grid. There's going to be a assortment of electrical requirements to feed that amount of power onto the grid at that location. And that essentially will dictate the size of the project. In addition with the power purchase agreement, which would most likely also be with Pacific Power. So the size of the project at this point is not known. We would love to build a 70-acre project or 80-acre project. If we're not able to in a feasible way, then that may get downsized to a smaller acreage. And that's at this stage of the game when we're developing projects, we have to leave that a bit open. So that's sort of a maximum, and it may be smaller than that.
So I guess a question. So if there was less than in the exhibit here, exhibit A1 it shows total AOI acres up to 80. So if there was going to be just like a 30 or 40 because the Pacific Power says, this is how much we want to take on, would you be building towards the middle or the bottom end, the top end? Because at that point, it uses some flexibility to sell the property to somebody else or maybe lease somebody else. Is there any idea what that might look like?
Yeah, just offhand, it would most likely be closest to the distribution line, which is on Outlook Road on the north side.
Okay.
And so, one of the potential costs is the wire that we need to connect the project to the grid, and that can be a very expensive cost. And so, most likely, it would be on the northern part of and the AOI stands for area of interest. Sorry, that's a kind of an industry term that we forget to run out there. But, so most likely the area of interest or the project area that we would end up on would be in the north half. And that's something, that type of thing is something that we could absolutely negotiate and work with Don on defining. This site in particular is so flat and so similar across the area that it's not like some other areas where there's some hills here and some flat here, and it's kind of hard to just this is it really seems like any area might work. However, there are many other things that happen in the due diligence period, including wetland delineations, wildlife studies, geotechnical studies, all these types of things, which may lead us to say, oh, actually that northern section is no good because there's a giant wetland there, for example. Which I know there's some preliminary information on that, so we hope that that's not going to be the case, but that is the type of thing that we might run into during that option period that would push the project to a certain area.
Thank you.
I see you got several projects from coast to coast, it looks like. Where are you guys based out of exactly? Where's home base?
We're based in Seattle, actually.
How many places there? You got district offices throughout the states, or it's just all goes?
We've got 3 other offices. So our CEO and my manager actually work in Portland. That's our second. That's our other bigger office. And then we've got a guy out in Wisconsin working on our Midwest projects, and a gal out in DC working on our Mid-Atlantic projects. So we've got essentially 4 offices, but most of us are housed in Seattle, right down by Pike Place, which is where I am.
All right. Are there any other questions?
And actually, just as a final note, that is part of why we're so excited to be developing projects in Washington, is that being a Washington-based company, I mean, we really want to build some projects in the state. So
I agree.
the market is growing. The solar market is coming to Washington. So.
Good deal.
Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington. where the sun always shines, right? Yes.
Right.
All right.
Talk about a brand name.
Yeah. So this before us tonight is authorization to the city manager to execute an agreement with One Energy Development LLC to lease some property. I'm assuming that those issues that our attorney, Mr. Warren, has brought up will be included as that agreement goes forward.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, with your permission.
Yes.
I would recommend that we postpone this until the 23rd, and that'll give us some opportunity for Keith to discuss this with Blake. I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, but I'll be available via telephone for either one of you. So if we could just postpone any decision.
Okay.
Probably preferable. That would allow us time to iron out these we're glad for any question.
What is the feeling of the council?
I think in light of the questions that have been brought up, that'd be a good idea.
23rd sounds good.
So are we all in agreement? We'll postpone it till July 23rd's meeting to allow for the figuring out of these other issues that came up tonight. All right? Okay. That's what we'll do. So we don't need a motion for that because it's without objection. That's what we'll do. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You have something else?
I don't believe it will be needed. Okay. Because I think the questions have been answered or asked.
That's good.
Everything can be addressed between the 3 of us.
And then you can just start, once we get going, just start putting them up there. Thank you very much, Bill. Bjorn?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. Moving along in our agenda this evening, we're going down to items from council members. Mayor's appointment for boards and commissions. I'm still looking for a couple of people to be on the Arts Commission, and I believe I have a vacancy on the Parks and Rec as well. So I'll be bringing some names forward for that. One of the things under that same area on the Parks and the Art Commission is I'll bring that to the committee who worked on it before. We'll see if we get some names together, and we'll put something in the paper to say we're looking for some people to be on the Arts Commission, and maybe Ms. Quick back there can help us out with that if she's still paying attention. Yeah, that's Jess. About maybe putting a note in the paper that we are looking for people to be on the Arts Commission board and on the Parks and Rec as well. We have some openings there. I can get you that information. Let's see. One of the things, other reports and things. I'll just go down around. Dean, have you any questions or anything you need to report on? Or?
I'm hearing positive feedback feedback about the work going on downtown with the tearing up the sidewalks. And, people are willing to listen when I say that it's a positive thing coming, and I tell them what's all being done, but not always very happy when they come up and talk to me. But I like the way the work is progressing. I think that we need to keep the word out there that this is a good thing, and it's going to be a lot better when it's all finished. We'll be glad that it's done. So that's kind of what I've been hearing back from people.
Okay, thank you. Craig, have you anything you want to add to anything you've heard on your wanderings? Okay, John?
I was kind of hoping that we could get the tiny house home want to check back on the workshop or something, we could get something on the board together for the planning committee. I'd like to get that sent over to them.
Okay, I think we can,
I know we have a lot more talking to do.
when we get to the status, request status reports, maybe we can put that in there someplace.
Perfect. Sounds
All right. That's you?
easy to me.
Okay. And I know, Ron, you had something that you wanted to bring up about the gang initiative, wasn't it?
They did not have a meeting the 1st of July. So the information I was wanting to get from the meeting won't be till August. So the only thing I have is back from April. And I would prefer to wait till the next meeting with them to
Okay.
get some current information.
Okay, thank you. And Francisco, anything?
Yes, on the preliminary schedule for the new city manager, we have phase 4 city hall reception for finalists October 4th and 5th. I'm going to be out of town that whole week, and I was hoping we might be able to either do it before or after, so it could be available for interviews and decisions, if possible. I know it's still preliminary, so if we move it a little bit, either early in October, or late September possible. That way, I could be around for that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may. Mr. Guerrero, we're going to have some discussions on this on Friday, or you will. Okay, for Mr. Singer, correct. We'll be asking you some questions and interview you, and I would suggest you bring that up. Again, the timetable is preliminary, and it'll be either extended or shortened depending on the needs of the council. Thank you.
We had some.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
You brought up Mr. Basinger on Friday. Is he going to be calling us, or are we trying to all need to know?
Madam Mayor, I was actually going to address that under my items, but we can address it right now. They would like to have, in person, they're going to have one staff member here in town. Okay, so their preference would be for each of you individually to come in to an interview, and then you'll have Mr. Bensinger on a speakerphone in the conference room, and then with their staff member here as well. And they're wanting about 45 minutes per person. The times are 9, 9:45, 10:30, 11:15, 1, and 1:45. Mr. Restucci has asked for 1 o'clock, so I already penciled him in for 1. So I need, again, if you can't be there, then we'll just make it a conference call. Okay, if you're out of town or something like that, at your convenience, your best. I think they'll be a little flexible. If you need to do it at noon versus 11:15, I think that they'll work with us a little bit. But they would like to get this going as quickly as possible. So
I will be out of town on Friday.
yes, and I was aware that you were going to be out, so a conference call on your side, they'll just make a phone call, get a 3-way call going. I think that'll work just fine. So we would like to get that done. The schedule is 9 a.m. 9.
The date of that.
This is this coming Friday. Yes, I think that would be the 13th.
13th, Friday, 13th. And that's at City Hall conference room?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe the one at 10, was it one at 10:30?
Yeah.
10:30. That's great.
10:30.
I'll fill in the one that no one wants.
Exactly.
I don't care.
I'd like to try to come in at 9 o'clock. Somebody sends me a reminder, make my phone go off. That'd be good. Yep. Okay.
Just throw me a time, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's nine.
Could you do 9:45?
9:45?
And Jim is at, so
What times are available still?
now we still have,
I have 11:15 and 1:45.
I will take the 11.
And, excuse me, there's one more. That's going to be 2:30, right? No. Yes, 2:30. I had only 6 there, so the last one will be at 2:30.
all right, so there's still 11:15, Dean,
I'll take that one, yes.
and Craig.
I'll have to get a hold of my boss and see if I can get someone to fill in for a half hour.
I'm working in county courthouse that day, so I'll be in court.
Well, you'll just get back to Mr. Day on the day you can be there. All right.
And I'll take the
Whichever's left over.
whichever's left over. There's two there then. There's 2:30 and
right?
1:45 and 2:30. So if you
I'll
both
do that 1:45 and that way it's finished up.
And if Mr. Hicks needs 9:45, I can do it a different time too at short notice.
Same here, okay. And that helps. Okay, so that if you've got some time that you can take, you can grab that one and they'll step down and that'll work perfectly.
We'll just rotate it if it works for you.
Well, it's usually 7 to 7, so.
So for now, then, Madam Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
for now, what I have is Ms. Hart at 9 o'clock, Mr. Strimler at 9:45, Mr. Burrow at 10:30, Mr. Borsman at 11:15, Mr. Restucci at 1 o'clock. And I write this in military time, so I'm trying to convert these. Mr. Henry at 1:45, and then tentatively Mr. Hicks will be at 2:30, and if that doesn't work out, if you can grab a time in there, we can bump somebody else.
And that's right here, correct?
No, it's
At City Hall.
City
Oh,
Hall.
okay.
The conference room there.
And then you'll go in the conference room, the door can be closed, and you can talk to them, and you'll have both one on the phone, and then the, I can't remember, Linnell, I believe is her name, will be here.
These are the times to have our questions.
Yes. They're going to be asking you, what are you looking for?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what
They're
they're,
interviewing us.
that's correct. They're interviewing you, wanting to know what you want in a city manager. So they know how to present that in the pamphlets and the recruiting brochures.
Awesome. Mine's going to have to be a home conference.
And that'll be fine. I'm pretty sure we can live with that.
I'm driving 47 minutes back and 40 minutes.
Exactly. As long as we can
Sounds
fit
like
you in a plan there,
technology.
Craig. All right. Just before we move on to council requests for status reports, I just wanted to say that I hope that you, as many as possible, were able to go to the 4th of July fireworks show on Wednesday, last week. It's already last week. We did get a 40-minute show. Got a little long being in the middle of the week because folks were starting to leave kind of early because, well, once you've watched one firecracker, it kind of gets redundant. But it was good because we had kept the crowd right up until almost 11. So that was pretty nifty. And then I just wanted to say also, if you guys could mark on your calendar just for your information, July 25th at the Community Center, we'll be having the League of Women Voters will be having a forum for the candidates running for Yakima County Commissioners District 3. So we're thinking there's going to be about 6 or 7 of those candidates will be there. They're all planning to be there.
That was
And
the
that starts
25th?
at 6, yeah, and that starts at 6:30. Also, I'm looking forward to seeing the new flagpole go up in front of City Hall, and I think that's going to add just quite a bit of aesthetics to the front of City Hall. And we're going to also see if we can get our Arts Commission to work on a new sign to go up there, maybe on the building as opposed to down where on the lawn, because the one we have is going to look really kind of tired by the time we get all that new curbing done around that area. So we'll have we're talking with the Arts Commission about that project. And okay. So moving on to council request status report.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I still have some questions.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
On our monthly reports, department reports, all we had for May was Public Works and Fire Department. Wondering when we're getting the rest of them
For May or for June?
for May.
The police department turned theirs in towards the end of the month, so
Pardon, I can't hear you.
the police department turned in their report towards the end of the month, so I thought I would just include it in this month.
In June. Will June's be ready by the middle of July?
The only one I have so far is Public Works.
Okay.
I will follow up on that
Okay.
via email
Appreciate it.
before we're out of town.
And I noticed today we got the code enforcement report too in our email today. And there's some really positive things on there for as far as what's being looked at thought there were some things that I hadn't even thought of, like looking at the vendors, our food vendors that out there and checking up on them. We kind of tend to forget them, and so that was good that there was a kind of refresher course going on there, I think. So I thought that report turned out really well this month. So. Okay, anything else? Any other questions or announcements by council?
Actually, the public works director isn't here, but I noticed a while back they were spraying weeds along the street, and just east of my place there were weeds that were about a foot tall, and a week later it looked pretty healthy. I was wondering what they sprayed them with, fertilizer or
Roundup or Miracle Grow.
Maybe they had the wrong thing in the
I've noticed that too.
Got a second life there. Yeah.
I hope they die.
Okay. So anything? Oh yes, Greg.
Yes. Before we switched out our secretary here, I put in a little card that had everyone's name. We used to get a council card. Is it possible to get another one?
I'm sorry.
It lists all of us, phone numbers,
Oh,
emails.
yes. Sure, we can get that done.
So you can call us.
A little cheat sheet for phone numbers and
Because if I'm working and a number pops up I don't know, I don't answer it.
We're supposed to be in your favorites. What are you talking about?
I know.
That's our number. I have pictures for some of you all.
we can get you a little card. Wallet is what you're talking about.
Yeah, a little wallet card just so we have it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd probably just get one for Greg. I think the rest of us have each other's.
No, go ahead. We'll feel slighted if we don't get one.
I'm just
He's the only one who's doing it.
Okay. All right. Anything further there? Too much fun. Okay, well, let's go ahead with council request status report. I think everything's kind of moving along the way it's supposed to. On the retail standards, we've directed for getting the consultant. Have we heard anything yet back?
I have not, other than they acknowledge they got it.
Okay. Does that mean they're going to do it?
I think so.
Okay, so we'll wait on that. Also, I think Romans, until we get some money, we don't know what we're going to do from there. We've already given direction, I believe, so. And the downtown planners, we had talked about doing something like a rotating plan on that. Have we?
We do. We have a plan that we've completed, and we'll be bringing that. We can probably bring that to the 23rd. And my apologies. I was actually hoping I could bring that this week, and it just didn't get done. We just got things going on, and we just didn't get it done because of the holiday and various other things. So we'll try to bring that back on the 23rd.
Okay.
And basically, what it is I'm just calling it Adopt a Planner. Where we allow civic organizations, individuals, businesses to adopt a particular planner. They come to City Hall, they sign the paperwork, and then they agree to maintain it, and they can plant their flowers in there. We're putting some restrictions on there as far as they can't tear out the trees, they can't tear out the watering system, they can't tear out lights and various other things. They work with us to take care of that planner for us. And then we put a little plaque on the kiosk in there for them. We're not sure exactly how we're going to go about that yet. We're looking at several options, but we're ready to go.
Not to interrupt. Did you? Perhaps we don't want to have them paint.
No.
Okay, you got that collected. So I'm afraid
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There's no painting.
We don't want none of that.
There's no painting.
Flowers.
Just want flowers.
Taking care of it.
It just seems like you have to make it so clear.
Yes, you do.
On everything. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. And animal control we are going to be talking about at our August 4th retreat. Development resolution.
That was completed.
That's completed. Yeah, we've got that. And that's with the attorney, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
we're working on doing an ordinance. I believe that Eric is actually working on that with Keith.
Okay. So that will be coming to us at some point.
Do we know when?
Yeah.
That's actually Eric and Matt are working on that. I can check back this week and email you, Don, if you want to find out. But I think that's coming along.
Okay.
So.
A while back, they were supposed to be ready in July, I believe.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Stummer.
Pardon?
He didn't hear you.
Oh, a while back, it was supposed to be ready in July.
In July. Okay. I'll check on that this week and then email Don. So.
Okay. Thank you. Sure, but we've talked about the code enforcement. Getting those, getting the overtime reports from the police department. You've been emailing them to us as needed. And First Street in Midvale, we've already added that to the tip, right? LTAC, we're going to talk about LTAC at the retreat, handicap zone. And I remember reading that Shane had put in, I don't know if you saw the email from Shane saying that the AARP grant that he was going for to redo the handicap area in front of the Senior Citizen Center on Federal Way hadn't come through. But he went back to the drawing board unless there's something new.
There is, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
But we did not get the grant, so we don't have any money to do that.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to be looking at other options.
Going back to the drawing board for
Back
money.
to the drawing board for the money.
All right. And just as a point of interest on this tree replacement plan, one of the most interesting, kind of maybe a little out of order, but bear with me, please. I went to, when we were at the Washington Association of Cities meetings, there was a guy there with what he called his tree root sucker. And it looked like a giant vacuum cleaner. The thing cost about $6,000. They're using it over on the wet side quite a lot, as you know, because they have the same problem as we do with tree roots, pushing up the sidewalk and cracking it and all that different thing. But what they're doing over there, and I have the information, I'll bring and show it to Shane or give it to you to show it, and it's really kind of interesting. It's one way to preserve trees that are already established in residential land or commercial zones. And what this machine does is what they do is they actually cut out they score an area of the sidewalk. They go in and they lift the sidewalk off there. Then they take this vacuum cleaner, I swear to you that's what it looks like, as a vacuum cleaner. And they go in there and what they do is they just reroute the roots so that they don't go under the sidewalk. They kind of make them go wherever the green space is, and then they get that all done and they pat down all the gravel and everything that goes underneath that piece of ply. So you don't have to jackhammer your sidewalk out. You're saving the piece of sidewalk. You put it back and you saved your tree. It was really fascinating. These guys were both. One was I think he was the public works director for a place called DuPont, and the other one was with the USD Forestry division. But it was really, really fascinating. And I swear to you, honestly, when you see the picture, it does indeed look like some sort of science project vacuum cleaner. But it works, and they're having great success with saving their trees and saving money with concrete doing the sidewalks. So I thought that was pretty entertaining. I just took a moment of privilege there to bring that out. I hope you guys don't mind. Okay, is there anything from anybody else? Mr. Henry, you said that you wanted to put something on here about the tiny houses.
One of the workshops are soon. I know we had a few more discussions about what direction we wanted to go. And the thing is, we just really wanted to send something to the commission with a recommendation or a detailed.
Give them an idea of what it is we're looking at, I think.
There was one small matter issue of, I hope I've had enough advance. August 6th, I will have to take my children home and I will be asking for my only excused absence of the year, hopefully.
On
August 6th.
Okay. Can we just go ahead and put tiny houses on our status report somewhere? Or do we want to put it there?
Madam, you can, but it's really not designed for that.
Okay.
Okay, because again, you guys this is driving it. This is the status report is generally when you've assigned something to staff,
right,
and you want them to do something. This here is a discussion for you guys to have. So I was just going to recommend we do it on August 6th, but you're not going to be here.
Yeah.
So perhaps we could do this one for September, and I'm not sure what date that would be. Perhaps we could
Do we want to do a workshop, the following workshop after the 6th?
But that would be a workshop.
Yeah.
Workshops are the first Monday.
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah.
So we can put it on an agenda item and have a discussion, but again, that could be quite a lengthy discussion. So I'm just not sure how you guys want to do it. We could put it on for the 23rd if you want to try to get something else going. You've had enough time to think about it. You really need to decide what direction you want. Do you want to be all encompassing? Remember, we talked about it, and there were 3 categories: homeless shelters, the low income housing, and then the up and coming new age folks that just want a small house. So exactly how do you want this thing to go? So each of you is going to have to kind of in your own minds come up with what you're anticipating this could be, whether you support it, don't support it at all, one category versus another, and then it's a matter of sending it to the.
Perfect, because that'll give us enough time to sort of maybe intermingle and kind of
look at those reports again a little bit. So we could schedule that for the September workshop. Is that agreeable?
Very good.
Easy peasy. All right. Thank you for keeping us on task with what we are supposed to be doing with these different planning. So, should we just move on to the agenda planning schedule? So for our 23rd, we have the adopt planner applications. Do you want to take that, sir? Go ahead and read that.
Oh, yes, ma'am. On July 23rd, so far we have adopt a planner application presentation and discussion, and then the amend 2.62, that's your personal policies. And this is something we've been working on for a while, and we're getting pretty close to being able to present something to you.
Okay.
On August 4, we have the LTAC policy. It's a discussion for what you want to do with your LTAC monies, and then a 5-year plan. We don't have anything for August 6th, so if something comes up, we'll for a workshop on August 6th. And then on the August 13th, we have tipping fees. And we have in our contract with Yakima Waste automatic increase for tipping fees as they're passed on. So they're just trying to get ahead of the game and get council authority on that. It still has to come to you to approve that, and then we need to raise our rates as well to cover the cost. Either that or we're dipping into the general fund to cover the costs again. So we want to try to keep this garbage fund in the black. And then I believe that's as far off as it goes. August 27th, you'll have LTAC recommendations for 2019 funding proposals.
Okay.
That's all we have so far.
On the retreat, too, I believe we wanted to talk about the animal control.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. The animal control contract.
Yes.
Correct.
Because we need to be thinking about that towards our budget as well.
We currently have 20 hours per week, and we're talking about 30 or 40 hours per week, and how much you want to do with that.
Okay. Any impact on our budget, so correct. Okay. So, this time, items from city manager and department heads.
Well, if I may defer to my staff.
Well, I really have nothing significant to report. I think I spoke well before, and I've given you enough of finance today, if that's okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
We already discussed the interview projects for with Colin Benziger. They're working currently. They've already started working on this. By the way, they're working on developing a new brochure. Okay, you saw some examples during the process. So they're starting to work on that. We're providing them some updated photographs and stuff like that. So that is going to get pretty quick here. So I'm going to be getting phone calls on Friday. I'm going to be leaving on vacation tomorrow. I'll be gone until the 22nd. I will be available via telephone, and I will be assigning an acting city manager before I leave. I went to the fireworks display the other night, and I thought it was great. And I really liked the way they did it almost like a crescendo. They started with some smaller fireworks, they were pretty low to the ground, and the crowd was thinking, okay, what's up with this? And then they throw in a big one once in a while. That gets your attention a little bit, and then as the show progressed, they got bigger and higher. Okay, and I really thought that was pretty neat, and so did the people around me and the kids. They all thought that was pretty neat. Wonderful job. I really think they did a great job. An update on the flagpole. I just wanted to give you an update as to what our plan is. You've seen the 2 flagpoles installed now over at the Veterans Memorial. They're not complete yet. Okay, they're going to do they have to put the lights on them, so they're not flying flags yet. And so each of these poles, and these are custom built poles. These are poles that they're amazing. They are super duper heavy. They've got a special trolley system in there to keep the cable from touching the pole. There's a gold dome on the top, and then on top of that is a custom handmade or hand poured eagle. Sits on each one of these. They made 3 of them, and they want one to be at City Hall. Okay, this is no cost to the city. I'll tell you right now, I've priced out flagpoles before, and if we were to build this, it would be expensive. The downside is it takes about 6 tons of concrete to hold this thing in the air. Okay, yeah, it's a lot. So our plan, our road department is going to be starting their chip seal projects here in July. Why they do this during the heat of the summer, I don't know, but they do. But so when they're done with that, then they're going to come in, remove the flagpole at City Hall, and place the new flagpole in the same location. Okay, they're going to take that up, and what our plan is, and what my suggestion is to take that flagpole now and put it over at Central Park. We don't have a flag at Central Park. We now have one at the pool, okay, that we put in last year, but we don't have one at Central Park. Never have, to my knowledge. Okay, what we'd like to do is put it behind Bonnie Dunbar's statue. Okay, so as you're driving into the entrance to the pool, in the park area there, you'll see the flagpole waving. We're going to put lights on it and stuff like that. So that's the long-term plan for that. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. So you're going to have those 3 flagpoles right there, one at City Hall, the 2 at the Veterans Memorial, to kind of lock in that corner. So just wanted to let you know what we're kind of generally thinking. It's going to cost us a little bit of money in concrete to put that base in the ground.
So 18 tons total for all 3 of them, correct?
Well, no, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They actually planted those things. They're 6 foot deep, and they're about 4 foot, 5 foot wide. And it's a big chunk of concrete. Big piece of concrete.
Sounds like fun. I like it.
It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. They have the new curb around City Hall there, get a new sign, got the new flagpole. Really cool.
Our plan is to do that in August.
August.
Making sure that everything else goes. And that's all we have.
Well.
Oh, excuse me. Clerk would be very upset at me.
All right.
August 21 from 4 to 6 p.m. We're having an open house for Debbie Mendoza. She is retiring, so I'd like to invite you all here. It'll be here at the council chambers.
Who's retiring? Debbie Mendoza?
She's a
the court clerk.
Yep. Oh, yes.
Also, the retreat locations, if I can turn the mic over to the clerk so she can explain what our options are looking at right now. We've got down to 3 or 4, I guess.
So there are a few locations I've called. A lot of them are reserved for weddings, for like a year ahead. So right now what I've narrowed it down to is Airfield Estates Winery, and I think that's the best location out of all of them. I'm going to go visit them tomorrow and see what it's like. And the other one was 14 Hands, but the meeting room that they have is upstairs, and I don't think we want to do that. And Miss Alba gave me some ideas earlier if this Airfield Estates Winery doesn't work out. So there's not very many places that are available, but we're going to try to find something. But so far, Airfield Estates is the one that I'm thinking will be best for us.
McDonald's has that back room.
McDonald's. The playroom.
My daughter had a reception at Airfields this January. It was very good. They were great to work with. So just as a personal experience, it worked out really well.
Cool.
Plus that's kind of nice to have. So Airfields has a local connection too with the Miller family, so that would be kind of cool to have it there. Okay. Anything further?
That's all we have, man.
Okay. If nothing further to come before the council, this meeting is adjourned at 7:44 p.m.